What makes a good film? Well, there's not really a whole lot of information about the perfect way to make a film. I mean, after all, it is art, and it's kind of interpreted by different people differently. The size, as far as positions and budget when making a film, is really up to you. But really the goal is that with every passing film as an independent creator, you should be working towards becoming more and more professional. Don't get comfortable. Continue testing yourself, continue growing, and you'll see yourself progress and become more artistic and become more comfortable with the art in the future. So as we start out with pre-production, the first thing I want to say is right off the bat, before you do anything else, you need inspiration. The way that you come up with a story in a creative way. Whether you got a script or you're writing the script, you need inspiration and you need things that are outside of just common life that'll help you create something that's artistic and something that you're proud of and something that people haven't seen before. I would encourage you to just take some time and go out into the world somewhere where you can feel creative and inspired and just think. Once you kind of have a story idea, what you really need to do is you need to outline the flow of the story. From start to finish, you're gonna lay out all the details for the film. For me, I usually start at the top. I know how the story starts, I know a couple scenes in the middle, and I usually know how the story is going to end.
Once you have a story for a film, it's good to actually talk to another creative so he can kind of edit that down in case there's anything that doesn't fit in their gray. It also helps a third party or someone else to have like a second eye on the story.
Once you've kind of bounced your ideas off of another person, another creative that you trust, then really you want to write the screenplay. And there's a lot of different ways to write a screenplay, but usually they stay relatively formatted in the same way. I personally like to get really creative in the way I'm describing a scene and what the characters are feeling, what they're going through. That ultimately, as a director or a writer, is going to help the cast know what the motivation is for their character. And so when I'm writing out a screenplay, in the descriptions, outside of just the regular dialogue, I get very detailed about how the characters are feeling and how they're processing. Once you've written a screenplay, you really want to have it edited. Really just someone who can take a look at your story and be like, hey, this is a little confusing at this part, or, just to obviously clean up either misspellings or, bad grammar. You really want to have it edited so by time other people are looking at it and referring to it for the direction of the film, you want it to be clean and you want it to be concise. Once you know how much money you have for the production, then you want to go ahead and set in a schedule for when the production days are going to take place, the whole production schedule. And so you want to make sure that you give yourself time for location scouting, for casting, for equipment, and everything that's needed to make the production happen the day of the first shoot.
What's a good thing to do once you have everything set in stone is to have your actors, your director, your producers come together and have a read-through of the script. That's good to get everybody on the same page. For us, on our film Dying of the Leaves, we didn't have a read-through, and I know that made us suffer a little bit, only because our actors, when they showed up for the first day of filming, it was a little bit awkward. They didn't know each other as well, but after like the first or second day of filming, that's when they actually got into the film. It made it more smooth and made them more comfortable so they can actually portray the emotions they're trying to convey. The first AD is usually in charge of the call sheet. Here's some examples of some call sheets. For Wiseworks, our call sheets are usually a lot smaller than like these big Hollywood call sheets, but we still actually plan out a call sheet so we can have everything planned out. We won't waste time when we go out and shoot.
One thing that you need to be aware of before you start production is keeping up with your equipment inventory and the status of the condition your equipment is in. Make sure that your department heads are creating a document that's keeping track of all the equipment that they're using, see how it worked on the production day, and give access to that to the producer and director so they can refer to it for that equipment after each production day. Production. It's the most craziest and stressful part of the entire process. And I would say if there's one key to finding success during production would be communicate as much as possible. Over communicate. Be patient with people. I know it sounds like it goes without saying, but people can't read your mind. And be patient. Patience is key. You can't be getting short with people on set, or people are gonna come to hate your guts. You have to be patient, you have to be positive, you have to be leading the group with the ultimate goal of seeing something creative and awesome at the end of this process. Also, lay out your schedule in a way that's not combining a whole bunch of work on one day. Make your schedule in a way that makes it easy for you. And also make sure you plan 2 to 4 extra makeup days at the end of your production. So if someone gets sick or there's bad weather or something prohibits you from filming that day, you don't want to lose an entire day of filming. Make sure that you have days planned and scheduled out at the end of the production, so any days that get missed during production, you can place on the planned scheduled makeup days.
Once you go out and shoot, it's good to have a shot list. That's basically every shot you need to create the scene that you're trying to film. It's good to actually write down everything you have so you have the shot actually filmed, but once you film, it's good to plan a little bit of extra time so you can just be creative with your shots.
Good directing takes great communication. Honestly, it's about the director taking all the different aspects of production, fitting them inside a creative vision, and having it go. You do that primarily through patience and communication. If the vision starts to bleed out of that director's primary vision, then it's the director's responsibility to try to pinpoint where that bleed is and try to bring it back to the circle to fit it in through the vision of the director, the creative vision that they have for that story. It is the director's word that drives the production, and so the director is ultimately responsible for the end result.
It's good to have a really detailed plan before you go out and shoot, because more you can catch up front is better. Things are gonna happen on a film. If you actually catch it beforehand by pre-planning, you'll be prepared for any aspect that could happen. Really, the equipment that you need on set with you when you go out to film, it's not that much. You can have a lot of equipment, but you really only need a good cinematic camera and some good lights that are battery powered. It's good to have battery powered because, going out in the field, you can't have anywhere you can plug in. And you also need a good reflector for when you're outside and there's direct sunlight. It's good to shade your actors so it's more even rather than like harsh lights here and then it's shadowed here. It's more even based. And you also need a shotgun mic with an external recorder. That way you won't have to mess with any audio through your camera, and you can actually manipulate the audio separately. So let me briefly talk about the SLATE. If you don't know what that is, this is what a SLATE is. You probably have seen this on like behind the scenes for big Hollywood movies. You don't always need a SLATE because you could always clap, but it makes you more professional if you're ready to step up your game and learn how to use a SLATE properly.
When recording audio for your film, you really always want to make sure that the mic you're using, usually a shotgun mic, is as close to the character as possible. You want it to be pointing above their head and not at the top of their head, above their head, and then pointing down at their chest, because it works like a shotgun. You want your vocals to be passing through the field of capture and not directed somewhere else. And honestly, when you're capturing, it's really important that you get clean audio. So getting it close is important. If your shot is seeing the mic, then I would suggest composing your shot in a way that's actually going to allow the mic to be that close. And then the third final option should be backing your mic off a little bit, but really you don't want to sacrifice audio quality just to get a good shot. You want them to work together. On set, you really only need to be capturing the dialogue between the characters and about 30 seconds to 2 minutes of scene silence. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's pretty much just everyone being quiet on set, and you capture audio of just the air in complete dead silence for about 2 to 3 minutes. So the two things you should be worried about capturing when you're on set is the dialogue between characters and the background noise from the environment for each scene. Post-production is such an exciting part of the production process. You get to take all of that creative energy and you get to be a part of something that's like building a puzzle to bring all of that work together into a final product. It's really exciting. It's not quite as stressful, I would say, as pre-planning or production, but it is something that's more tedious. It can be time consuming, but at the same time, it's very rewarding to see just a big bundled mess of media and being able to create a film that comes together for people to enjoy.
Once post-production comes around, know how to archive your footage. It's good to have 2 separate copies of your footage so that in case you lose one, you'll still have a backup for it. How we like to do it, we like to put it on an external drive and then also like on a hard drive of the computer. Sometimes it's good to have an editor because then you have fresh eyes editing the film and it brings a new perspective to it with the director kind of overseeing the editor. But being an independent film, you don't always have the money for an editor on the side, so you have to edit stuff yourself. So it's good to know your software and how to edit.
Me and my brother here at Wiseworks Entertainment, we use Adobe Premiere Pro. It's really kind of an industry standard at this point. A lot of people use it. When getting started with editing a film, I usually like to import all of my media, divide it up from folder to folder based on which scene they are, and then I create sequences depending on that scene. And so for scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, they are all on separate sequences. And then I take my video and my audio and I match it up shot for each of those scenes. It's really a good starting point for editing your film. It allows you to see all of the media you have in one place and you can start filtering through and putting things together in a nice, neat, and not extremely confusing way. I will say, as far as cleaning up your audio goes, me and my brother, as we said, we use Premiere Pro. And if you took the time to make sure you're capturing clean audio on set, close as possible with the mic, then you're actually gonna have pretty decent audio in the final editing room. And so really all of the effects that you need to be able to clean up your audio can be found inside of Premiere Pro. And you don't really necessarily have to take it to another program to make it really clean. Once you have all of your scenes, shots lined up in their separate sequences, then you start cutting them up and placing them from the 0 point on the time scale, and you just start working up. You start building it together and putting together the flow of the scene and how it comes together, where the cuts are made. And you're also, every time a character is not speaking, bringing down, fading up and down the audio based on when the character is speaking. And there are effects that you can use inside of Premiere Pro, like I said, that will do it kind of automatically for you. And then really what we take after we have our scenes lined up and created, and we'll take that background noise that we created for each scene and we'll put it across the audio and bring it up to the background noise that is in the dialogue. So when you hear the dialogue and you have it edited, you might hear background noise going up and then down whenever someone stops talking or starts talking. So that background noise is to kind of bring the very minimal background noise you need for that scene to sound consistent, like there's not any weaving in and out of your audio sound.
Next is color correcting your shots. How we like to do it, we like to color correct through Adobe Premiere Pro using Lumetri Color. There's a good software in Premiere Pro that you can kind of edit your footage through color correcting. When we're out shooting, we normally shoot really flat. It looks kind of white, like almost like ghostly, but that way we can edit and do the color correcting perfectly because that makes it easier for us to color correct post-production. You can really see your film come to life at this point. But then you need sound effects. It's good to study your film How we usually do it is we go shot for shot, like we take each scene and we write down like if there's footsteps or a gunshot or like stabbing or punching, we write it down so we know what to record for that scene.
At this point, you should see all of your scenes edited together, and the only thing that's missing is them to be all next to each other on one timeline and also adding music. And so in Premiere, you can do this in a very simple way. You really just create a new sequence, a new timeline, and you can go up to your bin and you can select each scene's sequence that you have edited and place it on the timeline in order on that new full film sequence. So all of your scenes will be laid out back to back, and then from there you can take the music that you've got, whether royalty free or you're composing yourself, and compose it underneath all of those scenes in a way that you like on that final timeline. Another thing that you should really be thinking about during this process, when you have the whole film laid out scene by scene by scene by scene in one timeline, you have music, you really should be thinking about transitions from scene to scene. You could go with something as simple as just cutting at the end of one scene and going to the next, but you would really see a growth and a real step up in quality for your film if you're thinking about creative ways to transition from one scene into the next. You'll see this a lot with Hollywood films. Think about it. I would say discover what works for you and something that interests you, but definitely have that conversation with yourself or with someone else you're working with and talk about how are you going to make the transitions from scene to scene. If you didn't add those transitions inside of your individual edited sequences, this is also a good place to add that. Along with your scene sequences and your music, you can also just put a few shots or however you want to do that transition in between those sequences. It's a really easy way to just go ahead and add those transitions that you've already filmed or planned out, however you want to do it for your film. Let me just touch one more time on music. Again, there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can add music to your film. It's a very simple way to edit it. Luckily, since we're in an age where there's honestly film scores that are already pre-made at your fingertips, sometimes it just costs a little bit of money, but there's programs where you can buy individual songs and get royalty free so you don't violate any copyright rules. There's also entire programs where you would buy an annual subscription and have access to the entire library for download. And then there's also programs like Filmstro. I used Filmstro on Dying of the Leaves, the film that you can see on this channel right now. And what it is that they have a library of music, and you can do a plugin into your Premiere Pro. It divides up each song on their library into 3 parts, and you can adjust the momentum or the power or the speed in a way that really drives the emotion or the intensity of each moment in that scene, and you have control of where it rises and falls. It was a really awesome exercise, and I think I definitely will be using them again in future projects.
So once you score the film, your film is basically done. You need to know what video format to render it out on, so it'll be the best quality for how you're going to release it. What we use for YouTube is H.264. That's an MP4 file. That's the best way to upload a video for YouTube. But if you're going beyond online, it's good to do research so you know exactly how to render out your film. But the good thing is your film's done, so you can render out as many times as you need.
We really hope that you enjoyed this little video that we've created for you on our process when making the films that you see on this channel. We just wanted to give you a little bit of insight. Maybe you're interested in creating films yourself or getting interested in this industry, or maybe you're a creative person and you don't know which avenue of creativity to filter that into. Well, me and my brother, we love filmmaking, and we're trying to start a company that's based around making films and media and entertainment. And so we just wanted to give you a little bit of an inside look, a very bird's eye view, you would say, of the process we go through to make some of the films that you'll see on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe. We would really appreciate it, and you'll be able to see all of the content we release on this channel for the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.